Hello. Hello. Is anyone here? All right, I know folks are eating their lunch. We're going to do this. I believe in us. We're going to gather to the front. We're going to do the pick up my plate and come to the front time of the portion of the evening. So we need to create the space for intimacy as we do witnessing. So if you're in the back, those tables are no longer existing. We're slowly removing tables from the space, and we're bringing everyone to the center, to the front. So come on down, please. If there's folks outside, maybe they want to start coming inside. Any of the CCEDNet people, I don't know if there's like a quick scan of the people on the outside. This is a very important practice, and we don't want to do it halfway. We don't want to disrespect the practice. And so that's why I'm asking us to kind of gather in more of a, maybe a sense of community. And when we have meals together, we don't sit on the opposite sides of the table, we sit beside each other. Or maybe you do at home, and that's okay. Maybe you had a rough day, and it's like, I just need a little space right now. That's okay. One of our members, I hope she's okay with saying, she's feeling a little cranky, she didn't have her meal yet, and she's like, I know, give me some space. That's okay. All right, thank you for coming forward. Again, my name is Andre. I work with Pillar Nonprofit Network. I want to say thank you to CCEDNet, to Community Futures of Ontario for allowing this practice to come forward into the event this year. It's something new, something fresh, and it's about exactly what we described at our table, bringing new perspectives, new approaches in order to see a different perspective on this work that we do. I'm going to share something, actually Priyanka said something to you, the 21st leadership, that I think is going to be important for us as a group to all understand. Each individual here has been asked to witness what they've experienced here from their perspective as an individual. They're not here to be an impartial observer. They're here to be their whole self, to bring their whole self to the table, and their responsibility is to listen to what's happening around them and to share that experience with you. So whatever they say, and Priyanka said, it's not their point is to make them feel like what they said is right, but to make sure that what they said is heard. So no one here is right or wrong, it's just you. And you don't need to make anyone feel like they're right or wrong. You just need to acknowledge, thank you for speaking. That's all you have to do, is just listen. It's a really easy job. And I will just share one thing from my point of view of what I've learned is, I'm not, someone asked me, are you Indigenous? I'm not Indigenous. And I work with Amanda to kind of bring this practice here because some experiences I had, but I was given tobacco. And the sign of giving tobacco is a sign of creating a contract. Amanda's been teaching me, no one's ever given me tobacco before. And Hannah gave it to me. And I was like, oh, this is real. I have a responsibility too in this moment. And it actually changed my relationship with this conference. Like Amanda and I, we took the initiative to do this. And we're like, okay, we're going to do this. No one asked us to do this. We actually presented this idea to the conference. But the moment Hannah gave me this tobacco, I was like, oh, I just signed a contract. This is something that we cannot take lightly. And every person on this table, on this stage has received that tobacco, has signed that contract. And so our responsibility now is to honor that commitment that they've made and to honor the space that they are going to take in order to do this. So I thank you for your attentiveness. I thank you for your sense of respect. I thank you for your sense of openness in this moment. And I'm going to pass it to Amanda now.
Sagoli Gawasanahawi Ne Youngets. So what I want to do at first, I know you guys are all trying to eat too, but what I want to do is open up this space and for the witnesses before they speak. So can I just get everyone to kind of stand up for a minute? And this is an exercise that I like to do with my children and youth that I work with. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to tell you to close. Okay, so close your eyes and think of a tree. It could be any tree. It could be a tree that's in your backyard. It can be, and just any tree. Just picture a tree. So now what we're going to think is, with all this stuff that we gained through this conference, with the experiences, with the truth, with the knowledge, it's new roots. It's stuff that we can bring in to ourselves. So you're picturing this tree, and you're picturing your roots going deep down into Mother Earth, going into the ground. Your roots are in that ground. So now I want to take a deep breath in, breathing in all that good energy, bringing Mother Earth's energy. I want you to hold it in your hearts, your minds, and your spirits, and slowly release. One thing about is we need everyone in a good mind, in a good space, so that these witnesses can speak their truth. So again, the words that they're going to speak is not to hurt anyone. It's their words. So again, take a deep breath in, breathing in all this good energy, breathing in all this knowledge, all this truth, and then hold it, and then slowly release. So I ask that everyone opens their heart, their minds, and their eyes, and most of all their ears, and let the witnesses speak.
Sam, I identify as a retired librarian, and I have been involved in rural community development for a while. A highlight for me was the warm farewell to Laurie Seeley. I'm pretty sure that I knew Laurie all of her government life, and it's all about grassroots community. I've been aware of CFs. I'm on the board of a CF right now, and I've worked with them for decades. ECONOUS has been like a family reunion in some ways, seeing old family members and especially new ones, meeting new friends, so invigorating. And it's been like a wedding in some ways too, a coming together of two families and meeting a whole family. I've observed lots of my colleagues being engaged by the new family that they're meeting and getting inspiration from them, from CF members, getting inspiration from CCEDNet people. And we're all involved in discovering new ways of organizing ourselves. We do have our own preferences. Personally, I thought the music and dance was superb, but I know some people rolled their eyes, left the room. Some like drawing. Personally, I prefer words. Somebody referred to that as being an A-type personality, and I wonder, does that mean they're Canadian, eh? Or they're just trying to figure it out, eh? I really did appreciate the emphasis on CED, because that's why I'm involved with the CFs. Although Al said something that helped me realize that the loaning function of CFs is a CED activity. Al described what the CF does as low volume lending with a high relationship ratio. Any time that we were given the opportunity to ask questions, I was really invigorated by the number and the quality of the questions that were asked, and the high quality, the high caliber answers that were given, and some real insights came forward. I noticed a lot of, as usual at a conference, but especially at a CED conference, people talking among themselves, and I wonder how many partnerships were created here, how many collaborations started. I think I'm aware of at least 3. In the first session that I attended, the dude from the Sioux challenged the room with the question, if we were gone, would we be missed? And I look around the room, I look at all the people in the conference, and I think if we were gone, what an incredible passion and opportunity would disappear. A couple of quotes from a few sessions I was at. At one session, we were introduced to a video about how wolves can change rivers. At another session, somebody from the Yukon offered the saying, 10,000 wolves can't be wrong. So wolves can change rivers. We can change the stream of the future. That's us.
Merci Sam. Moi, je vais intervenir en français. Je m'appelle Haudenosaunee. Je suis agente de développement économique à la Société économique de l'Ontario. Je suis très contente d'être parmi vous aujourd'hui. Comme vous avez constaté probablement, j'ai préparé mon speech. It seems like Francophone people speak a lot, so I had to take note. Okay? So, je suis très contente d'être parmi vous aujourd'hui, faire partie de ce groupe de témoins de l'événement. Je remercie Amanda et je remercie André de m'avoir invité à joindre le groupe. Et bien sûr, sans hésitation, j'ai dit oui, j'ai accepté. J'ai trouvé cette expérience très stimulante, mais pleine de défis, car il y en a tellement à apprendre. Mais je vais suivre les recommandations d'Amanda et je vais être moi. Je vais vous partager ma perception que j'ai vue, entendue et appris. En effet, tout l'événement est basé sur le respect, l'écoute, le partage et l'apprentissage. Mais moi, je vais ajouter quelque chose, le réseautage. Car cela s'applique bien. Et dès le premier jour de l'événement, je l'ai fait. Et je dois citer que même dans les toilettes, on a pu se connecter avec des gens. Donc, partout et pour tout. Donc, j'ai pu connecter avec des gens et pourtant je connaissais certains, mais je n'ai pas vu depuis longtemps, une décennie. J'ai rencontré des gens de différents coins du Canada et de différents secteurs et disciplines. Je vais reconnecter sans doute avec ces personnes bientôt pour leur partager de l'information qu'ils m'ont demandé, ou bien seulement pour connecter et les connecter avec d'autres personnes de la ville ou dans mon réseau. J'ai oublié de mentionner que j'habite à London, je suis d'ici. Une des sessions qui m'a fait réfléchir, c'était celle de Neuroscience of Leadership. Le fait qu'on est payé pour travailler, mais en fait non, on est payé pour penser. Et le plus grand avoir, asset, est notre cerveau. Or, nous ne prenons pas assez bien soin de notre cerveau. Ce dernier a bien besoin d'être en bonne santé et pour bien fonctionner. Nous avons besoin de bien manger, bien dormir, suffisamment dormir, du repos, car nous mettons beaucoup de stress sur nous, sur notre cerveau. Le résultat, c'est que notre concentration a beaucoup diminué de ce qui était, ça fait quelques années passées. Malheureusement, les médias sociaux peuvent être une des causes. Donc, prenons soin de nous-mêmes pour pouvoir accomplir ce qu'on entreprend. Cela m'amène à parler de l'innovation. Et comme tout le monde veut innover, il faut se mettre en action, mais avant cela, à mon avis, il faut se mettre en question à l'échelle personnelle et organisationnelle pour savoir ce que nous empêche, ce que nous bloque pour avancer. On peut identifier des barrières, des lacunes, mais il faut surtout accepter la rétroaction. C'est ce que j'ai appris dans une session d'innovation, ici, avec vous. Moi, j'ai lié cela à l'intelligence émotionnelle et l'intelligence culturelle, d'où la capacité de gérer des situations, comprendre et inclure les autres, sachant que la diversité, dans tous ses aspects, est une valeur ajoutée et un avantage compétitif. Je l'ai appris ici, dans une des sessions. Donc, soyons tous inclusifs. D'une à l'autre, on a parlé de la pauvreté, de comment encourager les jeunes à avoir un esprit innovateur, comment aider les aînés, et peut-on minimiser nos déchets et le gaspillage? Certaines choses sont alarmantes et d'autres nous laissent à réfléchir et se mettre en question. Il faut toujours se remettre en question. Mais non seulement on a appris, mais aussi nous avons pu voyager et rêver un peu partout, de la côte du Nord au Québec à la Laponie, Lapland, qui est la région la plus nordique de la Finlande. Ces voyages étaient pour découvrir, apprendre, s'inspirer et de chercher de la nouvelle direction et des opportunités. Si je résume tout, je vais dire, il faut s'accepter soi-même, il faut accepter autrui, et il faut se concerter. Merci beaucoup.
So, can everyone hear me? Perfect. Great. Hi, everyone. I'd like to start by saying two things. First, that my views are mine and mine alone, and second, that I'm a little bit nervous to be up here. My name is Kosi Sachku, which means as it pleases God in Igbo. I start with this because every name comes with its own story, and it is my way of grounding what I say next in my positionality as a young Black woman born in Nigeria and raised in Gatineau, Quebec. It's taken me many years to love my name and cherish what it says about me and my heritage. It is one element of my bundle, an indigenous term as I've learned, that refers to sacred items such as feathers and plants, as well as to the collective and personal knowledges that we hold and the gifts that we come into this world with. When we were invited to be witnesses, both Amanda and Andre invited us to think about our role not as an added responsibility, but as a way of leveraging our own unique bundles to assess and filter what we would be learning throughout the conference. As witnesses, our role was to use our own personal lived experience as a lens through which to understand and then communicate our learning. Thinking through the last couple days, two ideas have remained with me constantly: the importance and power of language, and the idea of practice as something that is not linear, that encapsulates past, present, and future. Both concepts are intricately linked, and when harnessed, can help us move towards a more inclusive vision of a social economy that collapses both time and space in terms of bringing together generations of knowledge that are both rooted in local places, but also connected to people and regions across oceans. Like some of you here, I'm quite new to the field of social innovation and social finance, and have often found the terminology heavy on my tongue, filling my mouth with words that seem foreign and abstract until explained in more accessible terms and applied to more relevant contexts. How many of you are familiar with the legend of the Tower of Babel? Okay. In it, mankind attempts to come together to build a tower to reach the heavens, but is unable to do so because what used to be one universal language becomes mutually incomprehensible dialects. In our context, it is not only language that has the potential to divide us, but these silos that represent different sectors, different organizational types, and different forms of knowledge production, be it institutional knowledge production within universities, or knowledge that is derived from being in community or on the land. Fundamentally, however, we're all working towards the same thing, all trying to erect the same tower that will help us generate wealth for all of our communities in ways that are socially, economically, and environmentally sustainable. This gathering and the conversations that have taken place over the last couple days, and that will continue to take place long after we've left, are a safeguard against a similar fate, and a way of ensuring that we can all collectively contribute to building that tower. It is by coming together to share our journeys and best practices and lessons learned that we've amassed that we can begin to see and understand the interconnected nature of the greater ecosystem that we are all working within. We all come to this work with our own unique bundles, be it skill sets, perspectives, resources, responsibilities, and capabilities. but we all contribute towards a common vision, even though we may describe it and name it in different ways. As Jocelyn mentioned during yesterday's plenary, friendship centers and Indigenous folks themselves have been doing the work of social innovation for years, decades, centuries, and even beyond that since time immemorial, all under a different name. As I discussed with Victor, who was also on that panel during one of the breaks yesterday, within African Canadian communities, the practice of social finance can be traced back to the Susu saving clubs of West Africa, where women would come together and pool their savings on a regular basis to then distribute those savings to a member of the collective on a previously agreed on schedule. These practices are not new. They have been with us for generations, just under different names. When we speak of diversity and inclusion in our field, we must remember why this is important. It is not only for the sake of representation, which though important often leads to tokenization, but because these communities have access to a wealth of knowledge and practices that have contributed to their resiliency throughout years of oppression, both material and psychological. They are valuable because they have something to offer, something that we can all learn from, if only we put aside our differences in language and really listen to each other. Coming into this space, into this field of social innovation and social finance, I became so overwhelmed by language around social finance, I forgot that my own mother had turned to and benefited from a susu when facing difficult times. We need to create a space where these lived experiences are valued and brought to the table as models to find inspiration from. As I've heard many times throughout the conference, innovation isn't necessarily about doing something new, but rather about doing something differently. It does not always have to be future-oriented, but must build upon the past to orient the present in order to guide the future. Time is not a linear thing, nor is practice. My source of innovation now is my own mother, and her mother's mother. How can we value their voices in our work as well? And beyond that, beyond time, how can we borrow from fields that seem so separate from ours? Much of my mindset and worldview is influenced by concepts in Black feminism, from intersectionality to standpoint theory. During the session on feminist economies, we were all reminded of the words of Audre Lorde, a brilliant Black feminist thinker, that the master's tools will never dismantle the master's house. In imagining the futures that we want to move toward, are we rethinking our tools? Things like language and organization structures, for example, board structures, that we don't often question but contribute to perpetuating the status quo. Are we looking outside of our own systems to systems of the past or systems from other regions or countries? In that feminist economies course or session, we did a simple exercise of completing a feminist business canvas and quickly discovered how a simple change of language in the way that a canvas is designed and the prompting questions it uses can lead to analyses and solutions that are more inclusive and rooted in care and the flourishing of all. What is needed to build that tower to the heavens in the Legend of Babel is an ability to find common language, language that allows us to see the similarities and potential synergies in the work that we are doing. Language that allows us to understand it as a practice, not constantly looking forward into the future, but harnessing the knowledge and the traditions of those who came before us in order to create sustainable futures for those who come after us. What is required is language that is inclusive, of different traditions, of different geographies, of different methodologies, of those who are not in rooms like today where decisions around common language are being made. We must ensure that the language we use does not become a tool to erase and alienate movements and people who are vital to the success of what we are trying to achieve, but rather increases the richness of the work we are doing. We must question the tools at hand and have the courage to reach out for new ones as well.
What a great gift. Thank you so much. I'm nervous too, but I feel that being here with you, with this group, really makes me stronger. Connection. If I had to choose one word to describe my experience, my witnessing, it would be connection. But I'm a kind of a more logical, maybe A type guy. So I have 4 key points. 1 question, 1 suggestion, and 1 invitation. The first point is a shift to individual to network mindset. Whether we are talking about leadership, internal processes, how to successfully achieve our goals, there is a intentionality about tapping into the collective wisdom, about connecting different voices. And that brings me to the second point, inclusion. The awareness of those different voices that drives inclusion in many aspects in this conference. When you're thinking about the food and, vegan and vegetarian and gluten-free and gender identity and feminism, the different faiths, acknowledging First Nations, and different languages, not only English and French, but visual language, arts, music, and so many others. By pointing out the differences, the diversity, it actually made me feel more connected, belonging. It made me feel proud of myself, of who I am, how unique I am. My name is Luis Patricio. I'm from Brazil. I was born and raised in an island in Brazil. And 3 years ago, I chose to become a Canadian, and I chose London, Ontario as my new city. That inclusion made me eager to learn more and honor the people who was in the land before us. So I just wanted to acknowledge the challenges that First Nations in Brazil are facing right now against logging companies, multinational agribusiness, especially the meat industry, and even the federal government itself in Brazil. And the third point is sustainability. The Amazon forest made me think about that. I think in this conference, it's a conference about economy. It's in the name almost. Social economy. But it's a lot about ecological sustainability too. We heard about food security, farming, green energy, green economy, clean water, zero waste practices. There is an integration of those 3 aspects, and I think this is extremely important to start breaking down those silos of people trying to build a more economically developed society, and people concerned about the environment, and people concerned about the minorities. This is all part of the same picture. And the last point is information. All that connection of the networks, of the inclusion of the different sectors. We really need to learn how to communicate with each other. And I could see that in the conference, even before the conference started, we were physically together, but they're trying to connect us with the profiles on the website where we could see who we are, our schedules, and the harvesting process, witnessing here, the designing thinking strategy, interviews, and the report that we will have after the conference. Connection. Those are the 4 points. But I'm a Virgo, and usually people say that Virgos are kind of perfectionists. Usually, if 95% of something is great, I will talk about the 5% that is not so great. So I'm learning how to celebrate those things, and I wanted to talk about those 4 points first because I really think we need to celebrate those. But I want to move beyond just celebration. And my question is, we are trying to redesign an economy for all. And it's really a question, I don't have the answer to that. Are we doing a conference for all? Who is not here in the room? Who wants to be here or who should be here? A real contribution, and it's not here. It's just a question. I have one suggestion. A conference like that could give a gift to the host city. What we're creating here is so powerful. Why keep it only with us? A gift to the host city could help spread those ideas. It would give us an opportunity to do something together, another opportunity to do something together, to spark some change in the local level where we are right now. And as a new Canadian, I'm embracing camping. And I learned that you always leave the site better than what you found. So giving a gift to the whole city could be one way of doing that. And it could be anything. We're pretty creative, innovative people. It could be a document, it could be a visit to City Hall or some other relevant place in the city, a piece of art, a demonstration, a public event to the local community. This is just some ideas that one mind in a few hours came up with. There are so many brilliant minds here. And the last thing is an invitation. And I want to talk about something that I didn't witness, and I think it's important to talk about those things too. And for some of you who know me, if it's my witness, it couldn't be a personal witnessing process if I didn't mention this. So I want to make two questions here. How many of you used the bike during the conference? How many of you were given the opportunity to use a bike during the conference? From the 4 points that I mentioned, a shift to individual to a network mindset. In a car-centric community, the car is the antithesis of the network mindset, is the ultimate symbol of the bubble, of the silo. As for inclusion, in any city, and they've done this research in hundreds of cities around North America, most people would like to try different ways of moving around. And most, if not all, marginalized communities, they don't drive or they have a very difficult access to a vehicle. Low income, homeless people, kids, seniors, First Nations, you name them. The third point, sustainability, I don't think I need to say anything about bikes when it comes to sustainability. And communication, well, it's impossible not to engage with your community if you're in a bike. A bike invites communication, conversation with your neighbors. So, yeah, cycling is important because it makes us healthier, wealthier, happier, and smarter. And I'd love to discuss any of those points with you. I'm not saying that everyone should bike here. This is not my invitation. But as we use the pronouns here to acknowledge the diversity, I think we can acknowledge that people can make different choices when it comes to transportation. And like we have different options for gluten-free, vegetarian, or vegan people, I think we can offer those options too for the people who want to bike. So the invitation is just to think about that for the future. Thank you very much.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Melanie Pilon, and I'm from Wawa, Ontario. I'm on the board of the Superior East CFTC board. I'll just start off by telling everybody a little bit about myself. I'm a member of the Wakwamkwang First Nation on Manitoulin Island. My mother's family's from there, and my father's family is from Mishkwatan First Nation, just outside of Wawa. So when I received the invitation to witness, I was very honored and humbled and interested to learn more. I did not grow up on a reserve, and we didn't grow up in a home that honored traditional First Nations practices. So when Amanda went through it all with us, and like Andre, this was the first time I had ever received tobacco, and so, and being a First Nations person myself, it was an interesting practice. So certainly something to add to my bundle of experiences. So this was really great. So during the course of the conference, I've noticed a lot of different themes. I participated in all the sessions yesterday, and the themes that I've noticed of all the discussions and all of the sessions that I went through were certainly collaboration, diversity, inclusion, and there was a lot of conversations about that, regarding those things, which was really great. And I think our panel of witnesses are kind of evidence of that. But what I did witness was that those themes still make people uncomfortable. And that's okay. But I think it's important for us to recognize that. And when you're uncomfortable, that's where growth comes from. So there's a huge opportunity for us all to grow from here, personal growth, but growth in our organizations. So there's an opportunity for us to change the cast of characters that we have in our organizations, the usual suspects. That's a phrase that I've always used, to make sure that we include different people on our boards, in our volunteer organizations, and sometimes that's going to mean that we have to do a little bit of extra work to kind of source these people out. And it's going to be a little bit uncomfortable, but I think at the end, it's going to benefit our communities. What we know we should do and what we actually do sometimes are two different things. So that's something that I've seen. And I think that we've all seen at this conference and then in our everyday lives. So I totally just went off my script. So I don't even know where I am now, but I'm gonna ask my friend Faye here to help me out. But I think if we do that, and we will see the fruits of our labor. Because I think that it is time for us all to go off our script, because, and we'll receive dividends. And I'm a type A, and I'm a business person, and that's what we all want to see. So, miigwech, and thank you very much.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Len Usiskin. I'm the Executive Director of Quint Development Corporation in Saskatoon. I'll just add that Saskatoon is in Treaty 6 territory, which takes a good part of northern Saskatchewan and Alberta in, and it's also the homeland of Métis people. I hear that this is CCEDNet's 20th anniversary this year. And I'm proud to say that our organization, Quint, has been a member right from the beginning. And I even recall, I think the founding, when they actually formalized the meeting was in Saskatoon, that year, and I recall being at that session when the organization was actually, I think there was discussions going on for years before that, but when it actually incorporated or whatever, first annual meeting. So, and at that point, I felt like I was, well, I was just new to Quint and this whole work. And now, here we are 20 years later, and most of the people who were at that meeting aren't here now. So there's been a changing of the guard a bit. I don't see all those old familiar faces that I used to come to CCEDNet conferences and visit with and get to know and learned a lot from over those years. But I'm really pleased to see that that the vision is continuing in the next generation, right? So that we've created something that has outlived that's outliving the actual original founders of CCEDNet, which is great. And I think that means we're talking about a movement for change here. And that's really why, that's what my motivation for working in the community economic development field. I mean, I've come from an area of being involved in northern Saskatchewan environmental issues and human rights issues and anti-racism issues and union organizing. So I was a community activist and then started thinking about how do we start changing the economy to start serving our communities. And so that led me into the work I'm doing with Quint Development. So we've been doing a lot of work around affordable housing and employment and training and social enterprise development for many years in low-income neighborhoods in the core area of Saskatoon, and came to this meeting. We come to ECONOUS conferences to sort of re-inspire ourselves, learn about new things, and give us new vision. And I think this conference has lived up to those expectations in a big way. I come here with 4 other colleagues from my organization, and we sat around till about 11:30 last night, just debriefing and brainstorming about did this and how we could do that, because of what we heard here yesterday. So I think all 5 of us were very inspired by yesterday's workshops and events. And so some of the things that I heard yesterday, well, one of the very practical point of view, we came here wanting to learn about the Social Investment and Social Finance Fund. And I was sort of under the impression that, oh yeah, the money is going to start rolling out. The investment readiness money is rolling out in September, right? So, and we've got a fledgling social enterprise that we're trying to get off the ground, and we thought, so purely for very practical reasons, like, okay, how do you apply for the funding? How's it? And it's become very obvious that we're not there yet, right? Or I don't know, we're there, but the government isn't there yet, I guess, right? And just over lunch, I've been hearing that there are some movements in Saskatchewan, anyways, that some funding might be rolling out sometime in November. But one of the things that related to social social investment is that I went to the Intentional Economy Lab yesterday, and we were learning about the definition of it, and what it's so essential that this whole process for social change and social innovation requires new relationships and deep listening and trust building to happen in order for it to be real. And I'm just really hoping that the funding that comes out acknowledges that it's a process, and it's a long-term process. Like Ted Howard said yesterday, you better be prepared to be investing decades into this work. So I'm hoping, that the designers of it realize that this is about, this is long-term change work we're working on here. And the funding better be sort of designed to accommodate that and support that kind of work, not short-term and like, what do they call, just one night stand kind of funding, right? And so that was some of my reflections on the social innovation, social finance fund. That was part of what I was hoping to get more information of while I was here. We learned a lot about, I went to a couple workshops where we learned a couple placemaking stories, and we've developed in Saskatoon a community enterprise center called Station 20 West, which is a co-location of a number of nonprofit organizations. But I heard about another one in Whitehorse and another public square in Curitiba, Brazil, and where it was leading to economic development and renewal of neighborhoods, which really resonated with me because of the work we were doing in Saskatoon. And one that really resonated with me was a workshop on critical urban renewal. So we work on revitalizing low-income urban neighborhoods in Saskatoon, and this workshop was on Old East Village in London, Ontario here, which is low-income neighborhoods, and talking about what's the difference between critical urban renewal versus neoliberal urban renewal. Basically, one is focused on community values, like which we're talking about here, versus ones that are talking about corporate models and where it's all about profit and capital accumulation, and not thinking about what are the needs of community members. So, and interesting, they ended up talking about the role of urban planning to support critical urban renewal, and there was a real interesting, we're going through this debate in Saskatoon right now about the concentration of social services in low-income neighborhoods, and the businesses are arguing that it's the concentration of the services that are leading to the concentration of poverty, and which we all know is not factual at all. It's a concentration of poverty that's driving where the services are being delivered, right? So interesting in there. And finally, I think a lot of us were inspired by Ted Howard's book, The Making of a Democratic Economy, and so was I, and we've bought a few copies to take home to read. And we went to see him all as well last night at that special book launch down the street, and which was really great event. And he's saying, so how do we frame, like it's a larger frame, how do we address, all the ills of our current economy, extreme wealth and income distribution, or inequality, I mean. And especially I think one of the things that I want to echo one of my fellow witnesses said is that I'm thinking about a lot, and I think we all need to think about is how do we intersect our work with the climate crisis? Because I think we've heard the UN reports that we've got only a few years, and so how do we look at these challenges as opportunities? And I think about some of the work that I read that places in Manitoba like Aki Energy are doing, where they're doing retrofitting of First Nations energy systems and creating jobs and reducing their greenhouse gas emissions all at the same time. So I think I'm feeling like that we're doing housing work in Saskatoon. How do we meet the greenhouse gas crisis and do housing at the same time? And so I'm thinking about how do we take challenges and turn them into opportunities for local economic development. And I challenge all of us, I think, to be making sure that is intersects in our work in a very meaningful way and deliberate way going forward. And I think I'll just leave it at that.
Hello, my name is Ryan. I'm a volunteer for CF Ontario, Eastern Ontario, and my hometown community of Grenville. And I guess my background and experience comes from a school project 22 years ago. I started fundraising for clean water projects in parts of the developing world. And back then I thought that one well would bring the entire world clean water because I was 6. And I was the definition of naive. I came in with a mindset of, it doesn't matter what the problem is, I feel strongly about this, so I'm gonna do whatever I can to make it possible. And throughout my life, there's been a lot of failures that came with that ideology and a lot of successes. If I had known what I know now about the world's clean water crisis, I would have never started as a 6-year-old fundraising my allowance and doing Pokemon card raffles to fundraise that money. Through my life, I've been to a lot of different conferences, and here at ECONUS, I didn't expect a lot of that naiveness. I didn't expect a lot of that, you know, we can do it no matter what, no matter the obstacles. Looked around the room and being in the workshops, there was a lot of realists, a lot of this is the situation, this is what we have to do to get funding, to get our project done, to get our initiative done. But that's not all I saw. I think I saw a little bit of that glimpse of that naiveness, of why we start social innovation in the first place. It's not necessarily just to make a profit, to see the bottom line, but to see the results in our community. And I don't think anyone in this room would be here without that. So I think one thing that I expected to witness a lot more was that grown-upness, that realizing that we have to make ends meet and do the tangible duty, which is important, because if all we have is that naive attitude, then we can't get anything done. But I think I saw touches of that in really important ways through the speakers, through the workshops, and through everyone who I participated in the conversations I had with a lot of you. I saw that, and I saw that attitude in terms of not necessarily staying there, but in terms of growing up and keep bringing that along with them. I think that's the hardest thing I've ever had to grapple in with my life, is bringing that attitude along with me, knowing what I know, knowing how complicated it is for fundraising and to get work done, make it sustainable, and a list of 100 things that is complicated. So what I've seen here at the ECONUS is people trying to hang on to that attitude, and all I can say is keep on hanging on to it and have that be the focus point of why you keep on going, because at the end of the day, that's what's important. And thanks.
Thanks, Andre. One of the things that, I guess I should introduce myself first. My name is Jennifer Shepard, and it's often that I get to play this role of witness in my professional work as a facilitator, as a graphic facilitator, synthesizing, storytelling. But this is the first time that I've had the opportunity to be a member of a witness team. And that's been so beautiful for me to have that opportunity and to appreciate witnessing as a valued act. And we had a gathering as a team of witnesses before we began our work, and as you've heard, we accepted our contract with receiving the tobacco. And I heard stories, very powerful stories from other members of the team about instances where they have intentionally brought in witnesses in their work. And I was really, really moved by that. I also want to share that it was really powerful for me to be witnessed as a witness, to have an opportunity yesterday to again sit in a circle and say, what are we noticing? What's coming up for us? What support do we need as we are holding space for noticing what is happening in the broader community? So I would really like to extend my thanks to the hosting team and to all of those who've been involved in creating a space for me to participate and for us to gather together as a witnessing team. For me, that's been the most profound part of my experience in the conference so far. I also appreciate Andre's and Amanda's invitation to bring my whole self in as a witness. Often in this work, I'm, I guess, expected, or we talk about holding an objective viewpoint to capture and synthesize what is happening in the moment as people are talking, trying to make meaning, trying to figure out where they are, where they're going, what they can create together, or even just sharing what they've already thought through a presentation like a keynote presentation. And it's impossible for me to be objective because I do bring my past experience, my history, my thoughts, my biases, my assumptions into the work. So it's really important for me too also to be humble and to appreciate this is actually one reflection, one way of noticing what has been transpired and what is rising up in the whole as people are in conversation together. So I really appreciate the invitation to come in as my whole self because it reduces the tension in me between the perhaps request to be objective when all I can be is subjective and bring my lens. And on that word lens, I've heard that a few times in the conference so far, you know, a feminist lens or you know, what do we mean by risk and what is the lens on that? I think it's important to appreciate that we all have different lenses ourselves as well that we can put on, take off, as well as the ones that we don't even realize that we're holding. So I just wanted to raise and name the value of appreciating the lenses that we carry in the role of witness as actor. Okay, and all that preamble said, I wanted to just give you a bit of an orientation to then what I have created here in response to what I witnessed in the conference this morning. So in my role of witness, I was asked to witness what's been happening in the conference yesterday as well as today, and to consider weaving in some of those observations into what I've created from this morning's co-creative conversations. I'm not going to go through too much of the actual content because you're all going to, I believe, receive a digital copy of this or have access to get a copy of this, so you can take a good hard look at it when you do see that. But I want to give you a bit of an orientation to the work. One of the things that I heard was about creating a new paradigm. So again, the talk last night about the shift from an extractive economy to a democratic economy is not about changing necessarily and manipulating from the edges the current way, but about actually shifting a mindset, shifting paradigm, and actually starting and creating different paths. So I've used that, I guess, the metaphor of the path in the layout of the work here. So I've also worked a little bit with the idea of a Western idea of reading from left to right as we move through time. So starting up in this upper left area here, made a power dynamic there between an individual who's holding a huge money bag and then the people who are holding very small money bags at the bottom of the pyramid and of the hierarchy. So that represents both the difference and the significance of difference of the few people that are holding many resources and then the many people who are holding little resources, and also, you know, where's the decision making and how are you working together through the different layers of hierarchy. So the hierarchy is that one directional path up and down, versus the yellow path is going sort of in the flow throughout the rest of the work. And you'll notice that it stops here, right in the middle of the river. And you can call it the river, I think the River Thames, here in, thank you, here in Ottawa, in London. So I'm trying to create a bit of a sense of place there. But I've ended it here because it's part of the choice point of being in the flow of what you are in, and where you're going. If I had, moved it off the page, it would show me perhaps like this is the end of the story, but I really appreciate that it can be calm water, turbulent water, you're in the water, or you're hopping over the water as you're in this work of co-creating a new path. It's also about making a choice. In the conversation on Monday evening, the woman who spoke about the neuroscience of leadership, she talked about choice, anything from what do you choose to eat, to what is it that you choose to do. And I think that's one of the underlying organizing principles of this, is that it's all of this work around communities leading innovation is about choice. It's about individual choice and collective choice. And what is the courage that you need to overcome your fear and move through it anyway to do the work that needs to be done. I also want to acknowledge the interpreters, the language interpreters who've been working very hard over the last few days. Yes, let's give them a hand. So much has been shared already by the witnesses as well about the power of language, and I think it would be very challenging for us to really understand and communicate well with each other without that wonderful resource that we've had of that interpretation team. So I really want to take a moment and acknowledge you for your contribution to allow us to do the learning and thinking and connecting. It's very important that you're here. Thank you. Yeah, the other pieces I think that I heard shared this morning was around pivoting. And so, dancing through the room, learning to work in teamwork, being connected, listening, and so on, and the importance of shifting and pivoting when you're not really, when you see something that you're bumping up against or a risk that you need to lean into, there's an opportunity to pivot. That piece really resonated with me because there's a lot happening in my life and in this work where I think we're called on to pivot in the moment, to the moment, to the moment, to the moment, to the moment. And so I want to acknowledge that as a piece that struck me as well. There's a lot of pivoting and moving when you look at the shape of the yellow line as it moves through. So just to finish my thought around the story and the shift of the story, moving from the extractive economy to the democratic economy way of being and thinking and moving and choosing, the narrative that I wanted to offer here to tie it all together was around, it is actually that shift, the shift of mindset from competition to collaboration, involving empowerment of self and the collective, and stepping out of the bubbles, bringing in and welcoming others, looking at bridging divides, acknowledgement as actually a foundational piece to looking at starting from that, developing that sincere collective vision. And noticing the tension between holding on and staying true to that vision while also attending to the details that sometimes pull us back and hold our vision narrower. So from that place of what is it that I'm intending, what are we intending, also the importance of asking questions. So a lot of the insights and takeaways that I heard this morning came in the form of questions. And I think that's actually something that I'm noticing that's more unique to this conference than to other places that I've been in. So I appreciate your invitation to ask yourself and each other questions. From that place of question and reflection, that also takes you into how do I want to move through this work myself and in collaboration and synchronicity with others. So I think I'm going to stop there and thank you very much for the opportunity to offer this subjective reflection, and I hope that this work is an entry point for you to continue to have more conversations with each other, to build on this in your own way, to bring it to those who did not have the opportunity to come and be in this place with us, and see where your new conversations and questions can take you. Thank you.
You all did an amazing job. I'm so proud of you. Thank you. Thank you for sharing your truth and being strong and courageous, and thank you. One of the teachings that I provided them when explaining what a witness was is that in my culture, we have bundles. I know you've heard that term used a couple times. And so what I'm getting my teachings from right now is my mentor's trying to fill up my bundle. So a bundle is kind of like a backpack of teachings, if you want to look at it. For example, if you're someone that's going to a powwow, if I'm going to go dance at the powwow, I'm going to bring my suitcase, and my suitcase is going to have my dress, it's going to have my beadwork, it's going to have my feathers, it's going to have my medicines, it's going to have whatever I need to dance at that powwow and celebrate. So a bundle is like, we all have bundles. So whenever we come to this conference, we're bringing in our bundles with us. What teachings do we have? What knowledge? What truth do we have? And so today and throughout this conference, we learned a lot more to put into our bundles. So that's what I love that they were using that too and saying like our bundles, we're thinking of our bundles, we're thinking of what we're putting in there, and how are we using this stuff that's in our bundles. We don't want to be taking those teachings and then not sharing those teachings. In my culture, another thing too, is when you're given a teaching, you're kind of expected to share that teaching. It's not something that you just hold to yourself and say, I'm going to use this to help myself better myself and put myself in a better position. You share that teaching to help other people as well. So I'm very thankful that they were listening. I can see that they were really listening and learning, and they're very thankful for this opportunity, for being able to do this type of work. And what we would also like to do, so I was kind of thinking, well, like how to close this. You know, it's like this is the first time doing this. And I too don't really have a script, because in my culture, we don't have like agendas or scripts. We go by what our heart tells us. We go by what our spirit guides are telling us. So a lot of times when I get up and speak, I really don't know exactly what I'm going to say, but I'm listening. I'm listening to the people. I'm listening to my spirits. I'm listening to everything, and then I just allow those words to flow and allow that. So it's not only me speaking, but it's everyone else as well. So we would like to give thanks to each, and we have a gift for them. And another reminder with this gift, it's a care gift. And what we put in there was different items that can help them take care of themselves. There's like candle, there's a smudging kit so that they can smudge with sage and keep positive and get rid of negative feelings or negative emotions when they're doing this work. One reminder that I'm always giving myself, and I think that we all need to give ourselves, is that we have to take care of ourselves. We need to take that minute or take that hour when we're feeling overwhelmed, or because if we don't take care of ourselves and we keep trying to move forward, what work are we really doing for the people when we have a sick mind or unhealthy mind? One thing about being a traditional, I think when I say I'm a traditional Haudenosaunee woman, a lot of people are going to assume that I've been a longhouse, that I've grown up with my traditions, and that's so the opposite. I am Haudenosaunee, but earlier I talked about Mohawk teaching. Right now, I'm doing a West Coast teaching. So my bundle is all different teachings from different tribes, different cultures that I had to build up, and that's how I built up my traditional system, my belief system. So I'm thankful to be sharing these teachings with you in hopes that you will put them in your bundles. And reminder, please take care of yourselves. And when we do this work, because we're needed. And like you said, like, if we're not here, who's going to create this change? And we need to create this change for the children and youth that are coming. And we need to create that difference. So again, I just like to, everyone ask to please bow their head. I'd like to give thanks to Creator and give thanks to my spirit and ancestors who I know have been here since I opened up this ceremony. I'd like to give thanks to Mother Earth for providing us with the land and all that we need, for the water, for the sun, for the moon. And I just like us to give thanks and appreciate that we're here and that we're able to be here. So everyone, please just take a deep breath in again, just breathing in all this good energy. And we want to hold this in our heart, in our spirits, in our minds, and we want to release. So thank you so much for all being a part of this and witnessing this as well. And I'm so honored to be here. Yonko.